The emergency beacon pierced through the cosmic void like a desperate cry for help, its signal weak but unmistakably alien. Captain Marcus Chen of the cargo hauler Wandering Star nearly missed it entirely, lost as it was among the stellar background radiation of the Kepler 442 system. He was 3 days into what should have been a routine supply run to the mining colonies when his ship's outdated sensor array picked up the distress call. Marcus rubbed his tired eyes and leaned back in the pilot's chair, studying the readout on his main display. The signal was coming from somewhere near the asteroid belt, roughly 2 million kilometers off his planned route. His ship was already running behind schedule, and detouring to investigate would cost him precious time and fuel. The mining companies didn't pay for delays, and he couldn't afford to lose another contract. But something about the signal nagged at him. In his 15 years of hauling cargo through the outer systems, Marcus had heard every type of distress beacon imaginable. This one was different. The frequency patterns were unlike anything in the standard databases, and there was an urgency to the transmission that made his chest tighten with unease. Computer, analyze the distress signal. Can you determine the origin species? The ship's AI, an older model that Marcus had nicknamed Vera after his late grandmother, responded in her characteristically flat tone. Signal patterns do not match any known human or registered alien communication protocols. However, the mathematical sequences embedded in the transmission suggest intelligent origin. Marcus drummed his fingers on the armrest. First contact protocols were clear about investigating unknown signals, but those protocols assumed he was part of a proper fleet, not a single-man cargo operation scraping by in the frontier systems. Still, the thought of leaving someone stranded in the void didn't sit right with him. Vera, plot a course to the signal source. And run a full diagnostic on our life support systems. Course plotted. Warning, deviation will result in a 14-hour delay and consume approximately 8% of remaining fuel reserves. Noted. Engage. The Wandering Star wasn't much to look at, but she was reliable. Marcus had bought the aging Hermes-class freighter with his military discharge pay after serving 6 years in the Terran Defense Force. She was past her prime even then, but Marcus had spent countless hours rebuilding her systems and learning every bolt and wire in her hull. Now, as the ship adjusted course toward the unknown, he felt grateful for every upgrade he'd managed to scrape together. The journey to the beacon took just over 3 hours. As they approached the coordinates, Marcus found himself staring at something that defied explanation. Drifting in the shadow of a massive asteroid was a vessel unlike anything he'd ever seen. It was sleek and organic-looking, with flowing curves that seemed to shift and ripple in the starlight. The ship appeared to be made of some kind of crystalline material that pulsed with a faint blue luminescence. Vera, are you getting this? Confirmed. Vessel appears to be approximately 40 meters in length. Hull composition unknown. No energy signatures detected beyond the distress beacon. The alien ship was beautiful in its strangeness, but Marcus could see the damage. Part of the hull was cracked and dark, and what might have been engine assemblies hung twisted and lifeless from the ship's rear section. Whatever had happened here, it had been catastrophic. Any life signs? Unable to determine. Hull material is interfering with bioscanners. Marcus maneuvered the Wandering Star closer, his hands steady on the controls despite his racing heart. This was it, actual first contact with an alien species. Not the kind of sterile, diplomatic encounter described in the Academy textbooks, but real, immediate, and potentially dangerous. As he drew within a few hundred meters, the distress beacon suddenly changed its pattern. The new signal was more complex, almost musical in its rhythm. Through the Wandering Star's forward viewport, Marcus saw lights beginning to flicker along the alien vessel's hull. "They know we're here," he murmured. "Should I prepare defensive systems?" Vera asked. Marcus considered it. His ship wasn't built for combat, but she carried basic defensive shields and a single plasma cannon left over from his military days. Keep them on standby, but don't charge them yet. If they wanted to hurt us, they probably would have tried already. The new signal pattern seemed to be repeating in cycles, growing more insistent with each iteration. Marcus found himself nodding along with the rhythm, recognizing something almost like speech in the mathematical progressions. "Vera, can you decode this?" "Working." Preliminary analysis suggests the signal contains spatial coordinates and what may be docking instructions. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. They wanted him to board their ship. Run a full scan of their hull. Look for anything that might be an airlock or docking port. The sensors swept over the alien vessel, revealing details that became more fascinating the longer Marcus studied them. The ship wasn't just damaged, it was dying. The crystalline hull was developing stress fractures, and the internal structure seemed to be slowly collapsing. Whatever power source kept the ship functioning was clearly failing. Scan complete. I am detecting what appears to be a docking assembly on the vessel's port side. Configuration is unfamiliar but appears compatible with our emergency docking collar. Marcus took a deep breath. Everything about this situation screamed danger. Unknown aliens, damaged vessel, the possibility of contamination or worse. But the alternative was leaving whoever was aboard that ship to die in the cold vacuum of space. Prep the emergency docking collar and run a full contamination protocol. And Vera? Yes, Captain? If this goes badly, send a full report to TDF Command. Include everything we've recorded. Understood. The docking procedure took nearly an hour. The alien vessel's systems seemed to be trying to communicate with the wandering star, but the technologies were so different that most of the attempted handshakes failed. Marcus had to rely on manual maneuvering and his own instincts to align the ships properly. When the docking collar finally sealed, Marcus stood in the airlock wearing his full environmental suit, checking his gear one final time. The atmosphere beyond the collar was registering as toxic to humans, but his suit's life support could handle it for several hours. The alien airlock was a work of art. Instead of the harsh angles and utilitarian design Marcus was used to, everything was curved and flowing. Lights pulsed gently along the walls in patterns that seemed to respond to his presence. As he stepped inside, he felt a strange vibration through his boots, not mechanical, but something almost like music. The corridor beyond was dimly lit and filled with what Marcus could only describe as mist. His suit's sensors detected a complex atmospheric mixture with high humidity and several unidentified compounds. The walls seemed to pulse with their own inner light, creating an almost dreamlike environment. Marcus moved carefully through the ship, following the strongest concentration of what might be life signs. His helmet display showed a confusing mix of readings, elevated temperature in some areas, strange energy signatures, and something that might have been biological activity. He found them in what appeared to be the ship's main living area. The two aliens were unlike anything Marcus could have imagined. They were tall and elegant, with elongated limbs and features that seemed both delicate and strong. Their skin had a pale, almost translucent quality that reminded Marcus of fine porcelain, but it shimmered with patterns of color that shifted as they moved. They appeared to be female, though Marcus realized he might be projecting human concepts onto beings who were entirely alien. The older of the two was clearly injured. She lay on what might have been a medical platform, her breathing shallow and labored. Strange symbols flickered across displays around her, and Marcus could see that several pieces of equipment had been damaged in whatever disaster had befallen their ship. The younger alien, and Marcus was suddenly certain she was very young, knelt beside the medical platform. When she saw Marcus enter, she didn't flee or show fear. Instead, she stood and approached him with a grace that seemed to defy the ship's artificial gravity. She was beautiful in an otherworldly way that made Marcus's breath catch. Her eyes were large and expressive, a deep violet color that seemed to hold depths Marcus couldn't fathom. When she looked at him, he had the strangest sensation that she was seeing not just his physical form, but something deeper. The young alien raised one hand, it was longer and more delicate than a human hand, with what appeared to be 6 fingers, and placed it against her chest. Then, she pointed to the injured alien on the platform and made a gesture that needed no translation. Mother and daughter. Marcus slowly removed his helmet, trusting his suit's analysis that the atmosphere, while alien, wouldn't immediately kill him. The air was thick and humid, with a sweet scent that reminded him of flowers he couldn't name. I'm Marcus, he said, pointing to himself. I received your distress call. The young alien tilted her head, and Marcus heard a sound like wind chimes mixed with running water. Her voice, when she spoke, was musical and complex, but completely unintelligible. Marcus activated his suit's translation protocols, hoping the universal algorithms might find some common ground. The system hummed for several seconds before producing a halting, mechanical approximation of speech. Gratitude, warmth, hope, the small light comes in dark time. It wasn't perfect, but it was communication. Marcus felt a surge of excitement mixed with relief. "Your ship is damaged," he said slowly, gesturing around them. "I want to help." The translation system worked both ways, and Marcus heard his words rendered in the alien's musical language. Her response came through as a mixture of words and concepts that the translator struggled to parse. Mother heart fades, ship soul dying, journey ends in cold. Marcus moved closer to the medical platform, studying the injured alien. Even through the alien features, he could see the family resemblance. The mother's breathing was becoming more labored, and the displays around her showed what were clearly deteriorating vital signs. "What happened to her?" Marcus asked. The young alien's response was longer and more complex. The translator worked furiously to keep up. "Star poison, ship wound, mother heart takes damage to protect daughter soul, systems fail, power fades." Marcus pieced together the story. Their ship had been damaged, possibly by radiation or some kind of energy weapon. The mother had been injured protecting her daughter, and now their life support systems were failing. Without intervention, they would both die. The young alien suddenly gripped Marcus's arm with surprising strength. Her touch sent a strange tingling sensation through his suit's haptic feedback systems. "Can heal help?" "Mother heart strong but fading, ship soul needs power warmth." Marcus looked around the alien vessel, trying to assess what he might be able to do. His ship wasn't equipped for medical emergencies, and he had no idea how alien physiology worked. But the wandering star had power, atmosphere, and basic life support facilities. "I can take you to my ship," he said. "My medical systems might be able to help." The translation of his words seemed to give the young alien hope, but she shook her head and gestured to the medical platform. "Cannot move mother heart, too weak, ship soul connection needed." Marcus studied the medical platform more closely. It was integrated into the ship's systems in ways he didn't understand, but he could see fiber optic-like connections running from the platform into the walls and floor. The mother wasn't just being treated by the medical systems, she was somehow connected to them. "Then, we need to get power to your ship," Marcus said. He spent the next hour exploring the alien vessel, trying to understand how their systems worked. It was like trying to decode a completely foreign language, but Marcus's engineering background helped him identify what might be power conduits and system interfaces. The young alien, she had told him her name was something like Lyralii as best as the translator could manage, followed him throughout the ship, explaining what she could about their technology. Her people, who called themselves something that translated roughly as the Harmonious, were apparently refugees fleeing some kind of catastrophe in their home system. "How long have you been traveling?" Marcus asked as they examined the ship's main power core. "Many cycles, homeworld burns, poison spreads, we seek new song place." The power core was unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. Instead of the fusion reactors or antimatter systems he was familiar with, the Harmonious used something that seemed to convert sound and vibration directly into energy. The core was damaged, its crystalline components cracked and dim. "Can you fix it?" Lyralii asked. Marcus ran his hands over the damaged crystal matrix, feeling the faint vibrations that still pulsed through it. "I don't know. But my ship has power we might be able to transfer." The process took several hours. Marcus had to improvise connections between two completely different technological paradigms, using spare parts from his ship and creative engineering to bridge the gap. Lyralii proved to be surprisingly adept at understanding human technology, and together they managed to create a power transfer system that might work. When they finally activated the connection, Marcus held his breath. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, lights began to flicker to life throughout the alien ship. The musical vibrations that seemed to be the ship's heartbeat grew stronger, and the medical displays around Lyralii's mother showed gradually improving readings. "It's working," Marcus breathed. Lyralii made a sound that needed no translation, pure joy and relief. She turned to Marcus and did something that surprised him completely. She reached out and took his hands in hers, looking directly into his eyes. Life debt, she said, and somehow the translator caught the full meaning of the concept. Soul bond. Forever gratitude. Marcus felt heat rise in his cheeks. There was something deeply intimate about the gesture, even though he didn't fully understand the cultural context. You don't owe me anything, he said. Anyone would have done the same. But, even as he said it, Marcus knew it wasn't true. Most cargo haulers would have logged the beacon and reported it to authorities, leaving others to investigate. The frontier was a dangerous place, and survival often meant looking out for yourself first. Lyralii seemed to understand his thoughts. Not true. Human heart different. Warm light in cold dark. We sing gratitude song for you. Over the next few hours, as the alien ship system slowly came back online, Marcus learned more about the Harmonious and their situation. They were indeed refugees, fleeing the destruction of their homeworld by what sounded like an aggressive expansionist species. Lyralii and her mother were part of a larger fleet that had been separated during an attack several months ago. Are there others like you out here? Marcus asked. Perhaps maybe. Fleets scattered like wind seeds. Some together strong, some alone lost. We search but signals weak. Marcus thought about the vast emptiness of space and the astronomical odds against finding other refugee ships without proper search equipment. His heart went out to these beings who had lost everything and were now wandering the galaxy looking for their scattered people. I might be able to help with that, he said. My ship has long-range sensors. If your people are out here, we might be able to find them. Lyralii's eyes widened with hope, but then she looked back toward where her mother was slowly recovering. Mother heart grows stronger, but still weak. Cannot travel far distance yet. Marcus made a decision that surprised even himself. Then, we wait. I'll stay until she's strong enough to travel. But, your journey purpose? Your people expect. My people can wait, Marcus said firmly. This is more important. As if to emphasize his point, Lyralii's mother stirred on the medical platform. Her eyes opened, the same violet color as her daughter's, and she looked around until she spotted Marcus. When Lyralii explained what had happened, the mother's expression softened with emotion. She spoke directly to Marcus, her voice weak but musical. The translator rendered her words as, "Human friend, you give life gift to family heart, how can gratitude song repay?" No payment needed, Marcus said. Just get better. But, the mother shook her head. Among Harmonious, life debt sacred, you now family heart to us, always welcome home where we go. Marcus felt something shift inside him at those words. Family. He'd been alone for so long, drifting from system to system with only Vera for company, that he'd almost forgotten what it felt like to belong somewhere. The next few days passed in a blur of activity. Marcus worked with Lyralii to repair more of their ship's systems while monitoring her mother's recovery. The alien technology fascinated him, where human engineering relied on brute force and redundancy, the Harmonious used elegance and harmony. Their ship was as much a work of art as a functional vessel. Lyralii proved to be an eager student of human culture and technology. She asked endless questions about Earth, about human society, about Marcus's own life. In return, she shared stories of her people's history and their homeworld. Ethros was Songworld, she explained one evening as they worked on the ship's navigation system. Every living thing contributed to harmony. Plants sang in wind, animals added rhythm, our people provided melody. All connected in great symphony. What happened to it? Marcus asked gently. Lyralii's expression darkened. Devourers came. They consume harmony, replace with silence. World song died, but some escaped before final quiet. Marcus had heard rumors of this species during his time in the TDF. The Devourers, as they'd been nicknamed by military intelligence, were an aggressive hive-mind species that consumed entire worlds, stripping them of resources and leaving nothing but dead rock behind. They were supposedly still confined to the far edges of the galaxy, but if they were now targeting species like the Harmonious. How many of your people escaped? Perhaps 100 ship songs. Maybe more, maybe fewer. scattered through void dark, seeking new home world. 100 ships carrying the remnants of an entire civilization, scattered across the galaxy and trying to find each other while avoiding the species that had destroyed their home. Marcus felt a surge of determination. These people deserved better than to die alone in the cosmic dark. On the fourth day, Lyraliai's mother was finally strong enough to walk around the ship. She insisted on formally introducing herself to Marcus, using what the translator called a deep harmony naming ritual. Her name came through as something like Selenira, and the ceremony involved a complex musical exchange that Marcus tried his best to participate in despite his complete lack of musical ability. "Your voice harmony is unique," Selenira said diplomatically after Marcus's attempt at their traditional greeting song. "I think that's a polite way of saying I sound terrible," Marcus replied, which made both aliens laugh, a sound like crystal bells in a gentle breeze. "Human voice different path," Lyraliai said. "But, intention harmony clear. That matters more than perfect tone sound." With Selenira recovering and their ship's systems stabilizing, Marcus began using the Wandering Star's sensors to search for other harmonious vessels. The process was slow and methodical, scanning system after system for the characteristic energy signatures of their crystalline technology. On the sixth day, they found something. "Contact bearing 27 Mark IV, Vera announced. Signature matches parameters for harmonious vessel." Marcus felt his heart race as he confirmed the reading. "How far?" "Approximately 4 light years. Signal is weak but consistent with a ship in powered flight." Marcus turned to Lyraliai and Selenira, who had both rushed to the bridge when they heard Vera's announcement. "It could be your people," he said. Lyraliai gripped her mother's hand, hope and fear warring in her expression. "Could be, but could also be trap zone. Devourers sometimes use captured ships as lure bait." Marcus hadn't considered that possibility, but it made sense. If the enemy was actively hunting the harmonious, they might use captured vessels to draw out other refugees. "There's only one way to find out," he said. "But we'll be careful about it." The journey to the contact took 2 days. Marcus kept his ship's stealth systems active and approached cautiously, ready to run at the first sign of danger. The Wandering Star might not be a warship, but she was fast and maneuverable. As they drew closer, Lyraliai spent hours listening to the communications emanating from the distant vessel. "Song pattern is correct," she reported on the second day. "Harmony signature matches our fleet family. But what? Sound weak. Distressed. Ship soul crying pain song." When they finally got close enough for visual contact, Marcus understood why. The harmonious vessel was larger than Selenira and Lyraliai's ship, but it was in even worse condition. Entire sections were dark and cold, and debris trailed behind it like a comet's tail. "They're dying," Marcus said quietly. Selenira spoke from beside him, her voice heavy with sorrow. "Fleetkin ship dancing through stars. Carried 300 souls when Exodus began. How many now?" Marcus asked, though he dreaded the answer. Lyraliai was already reaching out with their communications array, trying to contact the damaged ship. The response, when it came, was heartbreaking. The ship was carrying fewer than 50 survivors, and their life support was failing. They had perhaps days before the last of their systems gave out. "We have to help them," Marcus said. "Your ship cannot carry so many," Selenira pointed out. "And they cannot abandon dancing through stars, too many injured to move." Marcus stared at the dying ship and made another decision that would change everything. "Then, we don't abandon it. We fix it." Marcus' friend, Lyraliai said gently, "Damage too great. Would need shipyard songs to repair." "Maybe. But I've got some ideas." What Marcus had in mind was audacious, bordering on insane. The Wandering Star carried fabrication equipment and raw materials for emergency repairs. If he could somehow integrate human engineering with harmonious technology on a much larger scale than before, it would be dangerous, he told them. And it might not work. But if we can create a stable power grid between the ships, we might be able to keep their life support functioning while we work on longer-term repairs. Lyralii translated for her mother, and they spoke rapidly in their musical language before turning back to Marcus. "We try," Selenira said simply. "Better to risk fail with hope than die certain in despair." The operation took nearly 2 weeks. Marcus worked around the clock, using every trick he'd learned in the military and years of improvised frontier engineering. The Dancing Through Stars was a much larger vessel than he'd ever attempted to repair, but the harmonious survivors pitched in with desperate determination. Marcus found himself working alongside beings whose names he couldn't properly pronounce but whose dedication and courage inspired him. They taught him the basics of harmony singing, the way they coordinated complex tasks through musical communication. In return, he showed them human engineering principles, the art of making robust systems from simple components. Slowly, impossibly, it began to work. Power flowed from the wandering star through improvised conduits, bringing dead sections of the alien ship back to life. Life support systems that had been failing flickered back to stability. Emergency shelters were erected in the ship's larger spaces, providing temporary but livable quarters for the survivors. On the 14th day, as Marcus was finishing the installation of a new power coupling deep in the ship's engine compartment, he realized he was no longer alone. One of the harmonious survivors, an elderly engineer whose name translated as Keeper of the Deep Songs, was watching him work. "Human friend," the elder said through the universal translator, "you work with ship soul as if born to harmony path. Very strange for outsider species." Marcus paused in his welding, wiping sweat from his forehead. "I don't know about that. I just do what needs doing." "Yes. Exactly what makes you strange wonderful. Most species work against universe flow. Humans sometimes flow with, sometimes against, always surprising." The elder moved closer, studying Marcus's work with professional interest. "You repair not just ship body, but ship spirit. Give hope song where was only silence death." Marcus felt heat rise in his cheeks again. "I just want to help." And that desire warmth changes everything. We sing gratitude stories of Marcus' friend for many generations. That evening, as the combined fleet of 3 ships continued through space toward what the Harmonious hoped might be a safe system, Marcus found himself invited to something called a Harmony Gathering. It was part celebration, part memorial, part planning session for their uncertain future. The gathering took place in the largest intact space aboard the Dancing Through Stars. Nearly 100 Harmonious had assembled, creating a breathtaking display of their bioluminescent skin patterns. As they sang together, their bodies pulsed with synchronized light, turning the chamber into something that looked like a living constellation. Marcus stood at the edge of the gathering, feeling both honored to be included and acutely aware of his outsider status. That changed when Selenira and Lyralii approached him, followed by the ship's senior survivors. "Marcus' friend," Selenira said formally, "you have shown harmony spirit though not born to harmony blood. Will you accept naming gift from grateful people?" Marcus looked around at the assembled aliens, their violet eyes reflecting starlight and hope. What does that mean, exactly?" Lyralii smiled, an expression that translated perfectly across species lines. "Means you become family heart to all Harmonious. Always welcome home, always protected friend, always remembered in story songs. We give you harmony name," the elderly engineer added. "Marcus who sings with ships. Honor name for one who brings life song to dying vessels." The ceremony that followed was unlike anything Marcus had ever experienced. The Harmonious sang a complex musical piece that seemed to incorporate his name, his deeds, and something that felt like a musical description of his very soul. As they sang, Marcus felt vibrations through the ship's hull that seemed to resonate in his bones. When it was over, he felt fundamentally changed. Not physically, but emotionally. For the first time in years, he truly belonged somewhere. The next morning, as the 3-ship convoy approached the edge of the Kepler system, long-range sensors detected something that made everyone's heart skip. "Multiple contacts," Vera announced. "Configuration consistent with Harmonious vessels." Marcus rushed to the sensor display, hardly daring to hope. The readings showed not just 1 or 2 ships, but an entire fleet, dozens of vessels moving in the complex patterns that characterized Harmonious navigation. "Is it them?" Marcus asked. Lyralii was already at the communication station, sending out recognition signals. The response, when it came, was a chorus of musical voices that needed no translation. Joy, relief, celebration, emotions that transcended language barriers. "Fleet family!" Selenira cried, tears flowing freely down her face. "Our people live!" As the three ships adjusted course to rendezvous with the larger fleet, Marcus began to understand the magnitude of what he'd stumbled into. This wasn't just about rescuing 2 ships worth of refugees. The Harmonious were trying to rebuild their entire civilization from scattered survivors, and he'd helped make that possible. "What will you do now?" he asked Lyralii as they watched the fleet grow larger on the viewscreen. "Continue search song for new homeworld," she replied. "Build new harmony in place of old. But, now we know, universe holds friend spirits as well as enemy darkness. The ships I helped repair will spread the story," Selenira added. "Other scattered fleetkin will know to listen for human friend signals. You have given us more than life, Marcus who sings with ships. You have given us hope path forward." As the wandering star prepared to dock with the flagship of the Harmonious fleet, Marcus realized his life had just taken a turn he could never have anticipated. He'd started this journey as a lonely cargo hauler trying to make ends meet. Now he was part of something bigger than himself, connected to a people who valued harmony and beauty in a universe that too often seemed cold and hostile. The future stretched ahead, uncertain but full of possibility. And, for the first time in longer than he could remember, Marcus Chen was no longer alone among the stars. The flagship of the Harmonious fleet was called Song of Tomorrow, and, stepping aboard it was like entering a living cathedral. The corridors pulsed with soft bioluminescence, and every surface seemed to hum with barely audible melodies that created an atmosphere of peace and reverence. Marcus followed Lyralii and Selenira through passages filled with refugees who had survived the destruction of their homeworld, each one adding their voice to the ship's ambient symphony. Fleet Commander Aurelius, a name that the translator rendered from something far more musical, greeted them in the central amphitheater. He was tall even by Harmonious standards, with silver-streaked patterns dancing across his pale skin and eyes that seemed to hold the weight of countless sorrows and hopes. "Marcus who sings with ships," Aurelius said, using the harmony name the refugees had given him. "Your deed song has already spread through our fleet family. You saved not just lives, but hope itself." Marcus felt overwhelmed by the formal attention. Around the amphitheater, hundreds of Harmonious had gathered to see the human who had rescued their fleetkin. Their bioluminescent patterns created a constantly shifting light show that was both beautiful and slightly disorienting. "I just did what anyone would do," Marcus replied, the same words he'd used before, though he was beginning to realize how untrue they were. Aurelius exchanged what might have been an amused glance with Selenira. "Perhaps among your people, such generosity is common. But, we have encountered many species in our Exodus journey. Most turn away from strangers in distress." A younger Harmonious approached the group, one of the ship's senior navigators, judging by the complex geometric patterns that flowed across her skin. She spoke rapidly in their musical language, her tone urgent. "What is it?" Marcus asked. Lyralii's expression had grown tense. "Scout ships report devourer vessels in nearby systems. The enemy silence draws closer." Marcus felt ice form in his stomach. The devourers, the hive mind species that had destroyed the Harmonious homeworld, were apparently expanding their search pattern. If they found the refugee fleet. "How close?" he asked. Aurelius gestured to a three-dimensional star map that materialized in the center of the amphitheater. Red markers indicated confirmed devourer positions, while blue showed the current location of the Harmonious fleet. 3 systems away, and moving in our direction, Aurelius said. They follow destruction path, consuming all life they encounter. We estimate perhaps 10 days before they reach this region. Marcus studied the tactical display with his military training. The devourers were conducting a systematic search pattern, methodically clearing each system before moving to the next. The Harmonious fleet was directly in their path. "Can you outrun them?" Marcus asked. "Our ships are faster, but many are damaged. Some cannot maintain pursuit speed for extended periods." Aurelius highlighted several vessels on the display that were showing power fluctuations and structural damage. "We would have to abandon the weak to save the strong."
The amphitheater fell silent except for the soft underlying harmonies that seemed to be the ship's heartbeat.
Marcus could see the anguish on every face around him. These people had already lost their homeworld. The thought of abandoning more of their own was almost unbearable. "There has to be another option," Marcus said.
"We could split the fleet," suggested the navigator.
"Send fastest ships ahead to seek new sanctuary, while others delay enemy advance." "Sacrifice on," Selenira said quietly, and Marcus understood she meant a suicidal rearguard action. Marcus looked around at the assembled Harmonious, these people who had welcomed him as family despite being strangers from another species. The idea of them throwing away their lives in a hopeless delaying action made his chest tighten with anger. "No," he said firmly.
"There's got to be a better way."
He approached the star map, studying the tactical situation with fresh eyes. His years in the Terran Defense Force had taught him to look for unconventional solutions when facing overwhelming odds.
"What do you know about Devourer tactics?" he asked. Aurelius seemed surprised by the question.
"They advance in formation, consuming all resources in each system before moving to the next. Very methodical, very thorough. They leave nothing behind that could sustain life."
"But how do they coordinate?"
"A force that size must require massive communication networks."
"Yes.
They use quantum entanglement communicators, instantaneous coordination across vast distances."
Marcus nodded thoughtfully. During his military service, he'd studied reports of hive mind species and their vulnerabilities. And if those communications were disrupted?
Their coordination would suffer, but the individual ships would continue to function.
They might even become more aggressive, lashing out randomly.
Or, Marcus said slowly, they might fall back to re-establish communications with their main force. The amphitheater erupted in musical discussion as the Harmonious debated this possibility. Marcus waited for the translator to sort through the overlapping conversations.
"It is possible," Aurelius finally said. "But disrupting Devourer communications would require a massive electromagnetic pulse on a scale we cannot generate." Marcus smiled grimly. "Maybe you can't. But I know someone who might be able to help."
20 minutes later, Marcus was back aboard the Wandering Star, frantically composing a message to Terran Defense Force Command. He'd left the TDF on good terms, and his former commanding officer owed him a few favors. But what he was about to ask for was enormous. "Vera, encrypt this message with my old TDF command codes and send it on the fastest possible route to Admiral Chen."
Message prepared. "Warning, transmission will reveal our location to any monitoring stations." "Do it."
The message was simple but urgent. Admiral, have made contact with refugee alien species. They and their civilization are under threat of extinction by aggressive hive mind called Devourers.
Request immediate military assistance.
AM transmitting tactical data and coordinates. This could be humanity's chance to establish positive first contact with friendly alien species. Please advise. Captain Marcus Chen, retired. With the message sent, Marcus returned to the Harmonious fleet to wait.
He tried not to think about all the ways his desperate gambit could fail. The TDF might not believe his report. They might decide the risk wasn't worth it. They might arrive too late.
But it was the best chance he could give these people. Over the next 3 days, as they waited for a response from human space, Marcus threw himself into helping the Harmonious prepare for whatever was coming. He worked with their engineers to optimize ship systems, shared human defensive tactics with their military leaders, and helped coordinate the fleet's movement toward a more defensible position. The work brought him into contact with Harmonious from across their society: scientists, artists, engineers, warriors, teachers, children.
Each interaction taught him more about their culture and values.
They were a people who genuinely believed in cooperation over competition, who saw the universe as a vast symphony where every voice had value. "Your people sing different song than ours," I observed one evening as they worked on improving the fleet's sensor network.
"Humans more chaotic harmony?"
"Many voices, not always in tune, but creating new music."
"Is that bad?" Marcus asked. "No, not bad. Just different. Interesting. Harmonious seek perfect cooperation. Humans seek What word, individual expression within group structure? Harmony through diversity, maybe? Yes. That concept song. Very human unique.
Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent chime from the fleet's communication system. Marcus felt his heart race as Aurelius's voice echoed through the ship.
All vessels prepare for quantum space emergence. Multiple signatures approaching.
Marcus and Lyrelii rushed to the bridge, where they found controlled chaos. The main display showed several massive energy signatures dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system.
Are they human ships? Marcus asked, hardly daring to hope.
The answer came in the form of Admiral Sarah Chen's voice crackling through the communication system, no relation to Marcus despite the shared surname, but one of the finest tactical minds in the TDF.
This is Admiral Chen commanding TDF Task Force 7.
Marcus, you crazy bastard, I hope you know what you're talking about.
We've brought everything we could spare.
The fleet that materialized on the display was impressive by human standards: 2 heavy cruisers for destroyers, and a carrier loaded with fighters. Marcus felt a surge of pride in his old service, but also worry. Against a full Devourer invasion force, even this fleet might not be enough.
Admiral, Marcus replied, permission to come aboard and brief you on the situation.
Granted.
And, Marcus? It's good to hear your voice again.
An hour later, Marcus found himself in the familiar environment of a TDF briefing room aboard the cruiser Indomitable. Admiral Chen was a small, intense woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She listened without interruption as Marcus laid out everything he'd learned about the Harmonious and the approaching Devourer threat. "Show me the tactical situation," she said when he'd finished. Marcus activated the holographic display, highlighting the positions of the Harmonious fleet, the approaching Devourers, and the TDF task force. "The Devourers will be here in approximately 6 days," he explained. "Intelligence suggests their coordination depends on quantum entanglement communication.
If we could disrupt that,
they might withdraw to re-establish contact with their main force," Admiral Chen finished.
"It's a sound theory.
Problem is, generating an electromagnetic pulse strong enough to disrupt quantum entanglement requires either a massive energy discharge or..." She paused, studying the star map more carefully.
"Or what?" Marcus prompted. "Or a focused gravitational anomaly. Marcus, look at the stellar geography here."
Marcus followed her gaze to the system's primary star, a massive blue giant with an unstable stellar pattern. "The star is approaching solar maximum," Admiral Chen continued. "With the right stimulus, we might be able to trigger a controlled solar flare. The electromagnetic discharge would disrupt quantum communications across the entire system."
"How controlled?"
Marcus asked, remembering the Harmonious fleet that would also be caught in the pulse. "Controlled enough to avoid frying the ships in the system, but not controlled enough to guarantee everyone survives unscathed."
"It's risky." Marcus thought about the alternatives. Without intervention, the Devourers would systematically destroy every Harmonious ship. At least this plan offered hope. "What would you need from us?"
"Detailed sensor readings of the star's magnetic field, precise positioning of all fleet elements, and..."
Admiral Chen hesitated. "Someone willing to fly directly into the star's corona to deploy the trigger device."
The briefing room fell silent.
Marcus understood immediately what she was asking. It would be a one-way mission.
"I'll do it," he said without hesitation.
"Marcus, no." Admiral Chen shook her head. "This is a military operation now.
We'll use one of our ships."
"With respect, Admiral, this isn't just about military efficiency. The Harmonious have welcomed humanity as allies.
If we're going to ask them to trust us with their lives, we need to show that we're willing to share the risks."
Before Admiral Chen could respond, the briefing room's communication system activated.
Lyrelii's voice filled the space, speaking in accented but clear English.
"Admiral Chen, this is Lyrelii of the vessel Dancing Through Stars. We have been monitoring your conversation.
The plan is good, wise, but Marcus' friend must not sacrifice alone." Marcus felt his breath catch. "Lyrelii, you can't, can and will," she replied firmly.
"Harmonious ships better suited for stellar environment.
Your technology and our ship harmony together give best chance for success.
Admiral Chen looked at Marcus with something that might have been admiration. You've got good friends, Chen.
The next 3 days were a whirlwind of preparation. Human and harmonious engineers worked around the clock to modify Lyraliai's ship for the mission. The plan was audacious. They would take the dancing through stars directly into the blue giant's corona, use its crystalline hull to focus the star's magnetic field, then deploy a series of TDF gravitational resonance devices to trigger a controlled solar flare. The mathematics were staggering, requiring precise coordination between dozens of variables. One miscalculation and they would either fail to generate enough electromagnetic force, or create a flare so powerful it would sterilize the entire system. Marcus spent much of the preparation time working alongside harmonious engineers he'd never met, beings who nonetheless treated him as trusted family because of his Harmony name. Their dedication and skill amazed him. They approached the complex technical challenges like master musicians improvising a symphony.
You nervous, worried? Lyraliai asked on the evening before the mission as they ran final system checks.
Terrified, Marcus admitted. But also excited?
This feels important in a way that goes beyond just saving your people.
Yes.
Feel same emotion song. This moment where two species songs join harmony for first time. Whatever happens tomorrow, universe changes.
On the final night, the Harmonious held what they called a journey blessing ceremony. Marcus found himself at the center of a gathering that included beings from across the fleet, survivors he'd helped rescue, engineers he'd worked alongside, children who had grown up during the Exodus and had never seen their homeworld. As they sang their complex harmonies, Marcus felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. These people were trusting him with more than their lives, they were trusting him with the future of their entire species. The ceremony concluded with Aurelius presenting Marcus with something extraordinary, a small crystalline pendant that pulsed with soft inner light. Ship heart fragment, Aurelius explained. From the first vessel to escape dying Ethros. Wear it, and you carry song memory of our people wherever you go. Marcus accepted the pendant with shaking hands, feeling the gentle vibrations it produced. When he put it on, the crystal seemed to resonate with his heartbeat.
I won't let you down, he promised.
Already proven that impossible, Selenira said, approaching with tears in her violet eyes. Whatever tomorrow brings, you have given us greatest gift possible, hope that universe holds friend spirits willing to stand with us against darkness.
The morning of the mission dawned with proximity alarms as the Devourer Advance Force entered the outer system. Long-range sensors showed a terrifying sight, dozens of massive, geometric ships moving in perfect formation, their dark hulls seeming to absorb light itself. Time to go, Admiral Chen announced over the communication channel. The Dancing Through Stars, now heavily modified with human technology, separated from the fleet and began its approach toward the Blue Giant.
Marcus sat in the pilot's seat, with Lyraliai at the navigation station and a mixed crew of human and harmonious specialists throughout the ship. As they drew closer to the star, Marcus could feel the heat even through the ship's shields and insulation. The crystalline hull began to resonate more strongly, picking up harmonics from the stellar magnetic field.
Stellar approach nominal, reported the TDF sensor specialist. Corona entry in 10 minutes. Behind them, the main fleet was taking position for the evacuation that would follow the solar flare.
The human task force was deploying in a defensive formation, ready to cover the refugee ships if the plan failed and the Devourers pressed their attack. Message from Fleet Commander Aurelius, Lyraliai announced. He says all harmonious ships are singing courage song for us. Marcus could almost hear it, the combined voices of thousands of refugees sending their hopes and prayers across the void. The thought gave him strength as the Dancing Through Stars entered the Blue Giant's corona. The experience was indescribable. Outside the viewports, stellar plasma danced in patterns that seemed almost alive. The ship's crystalline hull rang like a giant bell as it interacted with the star's magnetic field. Every display showed temperatures and radiation levels that would have been instantly fatal to unprotected life. Gravitational resonance devices ready for deployment, announced the human weapons specialist. Deploy on my mark, Marcus replied, watching the sensor readings carefully. They needed to place the devices at precisely the right points in the stellar magnetic field for the plan to work.
Now!
The devices shot out from the modified ship like seeds into cosmic wind, each one taking position at calculated points around the star's equator.
For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the stellar magnetic field began to fluctuate in response to the artificial gravitational waves.
"It's working,"
Lyralii called out. Magnetic field resonance increasing.
The star's surface began to churn more violently. Massive prominences of superheated plasma reached out into space like grasping fingers. The dancing through stars shook as it rode the edge of forces powerful enough to destroy entire worlds.
"Solar flare initiation in 30 seconds, Marcus announced to the fleet."
In the distance, he could see the Devourer ships continuing their advance, unaware of what was about to happen. Their perfect formation and methodical approach suddenly seemed less terrifying and more tragic. They were just following their programming, unable to imagine that their prey might fight back in such an unconventional way.
15 seconds to flare initiation.
The star's surface erupted.
A column of plasma and electromagnetic energy shot out from the blue giant, carrying more power than entire civilizations had ever harnessed.
The wave front raced across the system at the speed of light, washing over the Harmonious fleet, the human task force, and the advancing Devourers.
"Hull resonance critical," someone shouted over the alarms.
The dancing through stars was caught in the edge of the flare, its crystalline structure singing notes that were felt rather than heard. For a terrifying moment, Marcus thought they would be torn apart by the very forces they had unleashed. Then, Lyralii did something remarkable. She began to sing. Her voice rose above the chaos, finding harmonies that matched the ship's resonance frequency. Other Harmonious crew members joined her, their combined voices somehow stabilizing the crystalline hull's response to the stellar radiation.
"Impossible," breathed the human engineer.
"They're using vocal harmonics to control the ship's structural integrity." Marcus felt tears streaming down his face as he listened to their song. It was beautiful beyond description, a musical expression of courage, hope, and determination that somehow held their fragile vessel together in the face of stellar fury. The solar flare passed, leaving the system transformed.
"Status report,"
Marcus called out as the ship's systems came back online.
"Hull integrity holding," Lyralii reported, her voice hoarse from the singing.
"All crew members alive and functional. Communication with fleet re-establishing," added the sensor operator.
"Receiving status updates now." One by one, the reports came in.
The Harmonious fleet had survived the electromagnetic pulse, their ship's crystalline technology actually helping them weather the storm. The human task force had taken more damage but was still operational.
"And the Devourers?"
Incredible, Admiral Chen's voice came through the communication system.
"Marcus, you need to see this." The tactical display showed the Devourer formation in complete disarray.
Ships that had moved with perfect coordination were now drifting aimlessly or heading in random directions. Several had actually begun firing on each other, their hive-mind coordination shattered by the electromagnetic pulse. As they watched, the majority of the Devourer fleet began to withdraw from the system, apparently falling back to re-establish communication with their main force.
"It worked," Marcus whispered, hardly able to believe it.
The journey back to the fleet was triumphant. As the dancing through stars approached the other ships, Marcus could see celebration lights dancing across their hulls. The Harmonious were literally singing their joy across the void. But the real celebration began when they docked with the flagship. Marcus had never experienced anything like the reception that greeted them in the Song of Tomorrow's main amphitheater. Thousands of Harmonious had gathered, their bioluminescent patterns creating a display that rivaled the solar flare they had just survived. When Marcus entered the chamber, the crowd erupted in a harmony so complex and beautiful that it brought tears to his eyes. "Marcus who sings with ships," Aurelius announced, his voice carrying over the celebration, "you and your fleetkin have given us the greatest gift possible, a future free from fear." Admiral Chen, who had come aboard for the formal ceremony, stepped forward. She looked around at the assembled aliens with something approaching awe. "Commander Aurelius," she said formally, "on behalf of the Terran Defense Force and humanity as a whole, I want to extend an offer of alliance and friendship to your people."
What happened here today was just the beginning.
The translator worked furiously to render her words into the musical language of the Harmonious. When it finished,
the amphitheater erupted in what Marcus could only describe as a song of pure joy. But it was Selenira who spoke the words that Marcus would remember for the rest of his life. "Human friends," she said, stepping forward with Lyralii at her side, "you have shown us that universe holds more than darkness and predators. You have proven that strangers can become family heart, that different songs can join in greater harmony." She paused, looking directly at Marcus with eyes that held depths of gratitude he couldn't fathom. "From this day forward, Harmonious and humans are joined in song bond that cannot be broken. Your enemies are our enemies. Your joys are our joys. Together, we will make music among the stars that no force of silence can destroy." As the combined voices of humans and aliens rose in celebration, Marcus realized that his simple rescue mission had become something far greater. First contact between species, forged not in sterile diplomatic chambers but in shared danger and mutual sacrifice. The future stretched ahead, full of possibilities that had never existed before. And Marcus Chen, former cargo hauler turned accidental diplomat, stood at the center of it all, wearing a crystal pendant that pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat and listening to the song of two species learning to harmonize together. The universe, he realized, had just become a far more interesting place. 6 months after the battle in the Blue Giant system, Marcus stood on the observation deck of the Harmony Station, watching construction crews put the finishing touches on humanity's first joint interspecies facility. The massive space station hung in orbit around a beautiful blue-green world that the Harmonious had named New Song, their first permanent settlement since the destruction of Ethros. The station itself was a marvel of combined engineering. Human angular efficiency blended seamlessly with harmonious organic curves, creating something that was both functional and breathtakingly beautiful. Crystalline spires grew from metallic foundations, while gardens of alien plants provided both atmosphere processing and a sense of living harmony throughout the structure. "Still can't believe this is real sometimes," Marcus murmured to himself, watching a Harmonious transport ship dock with one of the station's bays while a human destroyer took position in the defensive patrol pattern. "Feeling overwhelmed?" Lyralii's voice came from behind him, musical and warm with affection. Marcus turned to find her approaching with 2 cups of what the Harmonious called memory tea, a beverage that somehow tasted like whatever the drinker was nostalgic for. In Marcus's case, it always tasted like his grandmother's hot chocolate. Sometimes, Marcus admitted, accepting the cup gratefully. 6 months ago I was just a cargo hauler trying to make ends meet. Now I'm apparently humanity's unofficial ambassador to an entire alien civilization. Lyralii joined him at the observation window, her bioluminescent pattern shifting to soft blues and golds that Marcus had learned indicated contentment and amusement. "You still are cargo hauler," she pointed out. "Just now you haul hope instead of simple goods." Marcus chuckled, but sobered as he watched the defensive ships maintaining their patrol patterns. The victory against the Devourer advance force had bought them time, but intelligence reports suggested the enemy was regrouping for a larger assault. The peace they'd achieved was fragile and temporary. "Any word from the Deep Space Scouts?" he asked. Lyralii's patterns shifted to more somber hues. 3 more refugee fleets located in past week. Total of nearly 800 ships found scattered across 12 systems. But, also what? Also signs that Devourers have consolidated into massive force. Fleet Commander Aurelius estimates they now command over 2,000 vessels, all heading toward known Harmonious territories. Marcus felt ice form in his stomach. 2,000 ships was more than the combined human and Harmonious forces could hope to face in direct battle, even with the tactical advantages they'd developed. "We need more allies," Marcus said. "Yes." Admiral Chan agrees. She has requested formal diplomatic contact with Altarian Federation and Centauri Republic. Both have shown interest in alliance against Devourer threat. The prospect of expanding the alliance was both exciting and terrifying. The Altarians were an older, more established civilization than humanity, with advanced technology but a reputation for being extremely cautious about involving themselves in galactic conflicts. The Centauris were younger and more aggressive, with powerful military forces but a history of territorial expansion that made many species nervous. "What about the others?" Marcus asked. "The species the Harmonious met during their exodus?" Lyralii's expression brightened slightly. "Some positive responses. The builders express willingness to provide construction support for fortified positions. The Wanderers offer intelligence gathering services throughout region. But, most still afraid cautious of Devourer retaliation. Marcus couldn't blame them. The Devourers had already demonstrated their willingness to pursue fleeing refugees across hundreds of light years. Any species that openly opposed them risked sharing the fate of Ethros. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Admiral Chan and Fleet Commander Aurelius, both looking grim despite their efforts to maintain diplomatic composure. Marcus, Lyrelii, Admiral Chan greeted them. "I'm afraid we have a situation developing." Aurelius activated a holographic display that showed the local star cluster. Red markers indicated confirmed Devourer positions, while friendly forces were shown in blue and green. The tactical situation looked increasingly dire. Long-range scouts report major Devourer movement in the Vega sector, Aurelius explained, his musical voice carrying undertones of worry. Fleet of over 300 vessels, moving directly toward Altarian space. Marcus studied the display with growing alarm. Are they attacking the Altarians, or just passing through? Unknown, Admiral Chan replied. But, if the Altarians come under direct assault, they'll have no choice but to join the Alliance or face destruction alone. What about our response options? Marcus asked. Admiral Chen highlighted several human fleet positions on the display. We can get a task force to Altarian space within 4 days. Combined human harmonious force of roughly 60 ships. Against 300? Marcus shook his head. That's not a rescue mission, that's suicide. Perhaps, Aurelius said quietly. Unless we can convince the Altarians to commit their own forces to the battle. Their defensive fleet numbers over 100 vessels, including some of the most advanced ships in known space. Marcus began to see the strategic logic, even as his gut clenched with worry. A coordinated defense with combined forces might actually have a chance. Exactly. But, it would require perfect timing and coordination between 3 different species with entirely different tactical doctrines. Who would command such a force? Lyrelii asked. Admiral Chan and Aurelius exchanged a meaningful glance. Marcus suddenly had a sinking feeling about where this conversation was heading. The Altarians have requested that any joint operation be commanded by someone they trust, Admiral Chen said carefully. Someone who has already proven their ability to coordinate multi-species operations against Devourer forces. Oh no, Marcus said, understanding immediately. You can't be serious. You're the logical choice, Aurelius added. You have experience with harmonious ship operations, you understand human military doctrine, and the Altarians have specifically requested your involvement based on their analysis of the solar flare operation. Marcus looked around at the 3 faces watching him expectantly. I'm not qualified to command a fleet action. I was a cargo hauler, remember? You are also a TDF captain, Admiral Chen pointed out. And, you've demonstrated strategic thinking that goes beyond simple military training. More importantly, you have something that can't be taught, the ability to make other species trust you. The decision ultimately yours, Aurelius said gently. But, know that without coordinated response, Altarian system will likely fall within days. And, if Altarians are destroyed, Devourers will control critical jump routes throughout this region of galaxy. Marcus turned back to the observation window, watching the peaceful scene of ships moving between the station and the planet below. All of this, the joint construction projects, the growing friendship between species, the hope for a better future, would be destroyed if the Devourer advance continued unchecked. When do we leave? He asked quietly. The journey to Altarian space aboard the modified Harmonious flagship Song of Tomorrow gave Marcus time to study the tactical challenges they would face. The Altarians had provided detailed intelligence about Devourer force composition and attack patterns, painting a picture of an enemy that was both overwhelmingly powerful and grimly predictable. They attack in 3 waves, explained Captain Sarah Martinez, Admiral Chen's tactical specialist who had been assigned to Marcus's improvised command staff. First wave destroys orbital defenses and infrastructure. Second wave eliminates military targets. Third wave strips the planet of all resources. Marcus studied the holographic battle scenarios with growing unease. How long between waves? usually 6 to 8 hours. Gives defenders time to hope for rescue before the final destruction. That's deliberately cruel, Lyralii observed from her position at the communications station. Psychological warfare, agreed Thing Conductor Zephyr, the harmonious military advisor who had volunteered for the mission. They want other species to know that resistance leads only to prolonged suffering. Marcus nodded grimly. The Devourers weren't just conquering territory, they were trying to break the spirit of any potential opposition. It was a strategy that had worked across dozens of worlds and civilizations. What about Altarian defensive capabilities? Marcus asked. Captain Martinez brought up new displays showing the impressive orbital installations around the Altarian homeworld. Some of the most advanced defensive technology in known space. Energy shields that can deflect planet-killer weapons, automated defense platforms with precision targeting systems, and a fleet of ships using quantum phase technology. Quantum phase? Marcus was unfamiliar with the term. Altarian ships can temporarily shift out of normal spacetime, Lyralii explained. Allows them to avoid damage and strike from unexpected angles. Very effective against conventional attacks. But the Devourers adapt, Thing Conductor Zephyr added ominously. They study enemy tactics and develop countermeasures. By second or third encounter, quantum phase technology much less effective. Marcus absorbed this information with growing respect for both the Altarians and the Devourers. This wouldn't be a simple battle between good and evil, but a complex strategic challenge requiring every advantage they could muster. What about our own assets? He asked. Captain Martinez highlighted the combined fleet composition. 28 human vessels, including 2 heavy cruisers and the carrier Valiant. 32 harmonious ships, mostly smaller vessels but with advanced crystalline technology for battlefield coordination. Plus whatever the Altarians contribute. Assuming they actually commit to the battle, Marcus said quietly. They'll fight, Lyralii said with surprising confidence. Altarians value honor above safety. They will not abandon their homeworld without struggle. The question was whether their combined forces would be enough. Even with perfect coordination, they would be outnumbered roughly 3 to 1 by an enemy known for ruthless efficiency and adaptive tactics. Marcus spent the remaining travel time working with his staff to develop battle plans that played to each species' strengths. Human ships would provide heavy firepower and missile support. Harmonious vessels would coordinate movements and provide rapid battlefield communication. Altarian forces would use their quantum phase technology to strike at critical moments. On paper, it looked almost workable. In reality, Marcus knew that no plan survived contact with the enemy. The Altarian system was beautiful in a way that reminded Marcus of old paintings of paradise. The homeworld was a gleaming jewel of blue and green, surrounded by orbital cities that looked like delicate works of art suspended in space. The Altarians had achieved something that few species managed, perfect harmony between technology and nature. No wonder the Devourers want it, Marcus murmured as their fleet took position among the Altarian defensive formations. The Altarian flagship Transcendent Light was a work of art that happened to be a warship. Its hull seemed to be made of crystallized starlight, shifting and flowing in patterns that hurt to look at directly. When Admiral Kayeth, the Altarian fleet commander, came aboard the Song of Tomorrow for the pre-battle briefing, Marcus felt like he was meeting a being from a higher plane of existence. The Altarians were tall and ethereal, with features that seemed to shift between solid and translucent. Admiral Kayeth spoke in harmonious tones that made the universal translator work overtime to render meaning. Commander Marcus, Kayeth said formally, your reputation for unorthodox solutions precedes you. We hope that creativity will serve us well in the coming battle. Thank you, Admiral. I've reviewed your defensive capabilities, and I believe we can coordinate an effective response if we time everything perfectly. Kayeth gestured to the tactical display showing the approaching Devourer fleet. Their advance elements will arrive within 12 hours. We estimate full assault force will be in position within 18 hours. Marcus studied the enemy formation with professional interest. The Devourers moved with mechanical precision, their dark ships arranged in perfect geometric patterns that spoke of hive-mind coordination. Have you faced them before? Marcus asked.
Twice, Kayeth replied, and Marcus heard centuries of weariness in the alien's voice. Each time, they learned from the encounter. Their tactics evolve. What worked against them last time will be anticipated. Then, we don't use what worked last time, Marcus said. We try something completely new. The next several hours were spent in intense tactical planning. Marcus found himself coordinating with military minds from 3 different species, each bringing their own perspectives and capabilities to the problem. It was like conducting an orchestra where every musician played a different instrument and read different music. The breakthrough came when Lyralii suggested something that seemed impossible. What if we use harmonious shipsong to coordinate Altarian quantum phase shifts, she proposed. Our crystalline hulls can carry harmonic frequencies that might synchronize phase transitions across entire fleet. Admiral Kayetha's features shimmered with what Marcus had learned indicated surprise. Such coordination has never been attempted between species. The harmonic frequencies would need to be calibrated precisely to our quantum resonance patterns. Could it work? Marcus asked. In theory, yes. But any error in harmonic calibration could result in ships being permanently displaced from normal spacetime. Marcus looked around the planning room at the assembled officers from 3 species, all watching him expectantly. Once again, he was being asked to gamble everything on an untested strategy. How long would you need to calibrate the systems? 6 hours, assuming perfect cooperation between our technicians and the harmonious shipsingers. Marcus checked the tactical display. The Devourers would begin their attack in less than 10 hours. Do it, he decided. The next 6 hours were a blur of frantic activity. Human engineers worked alongside Altarian quantum specialists and harmonious shipsingers to create something that had never existed before, a multi-species coordination system that could synchronize faster-than-light movements across an entire battle fleet. Marcus found himself running between ships, coordinating the technical integration while also finalizing battle plans with his command staff. The complexity was staggering. They were essentially inventing new forms of interspecies warfare in real time. Harmonic calibration complete, Lyralii reported as Marcus returned to the bridge of the Song of Tomorrow. Quantum phase synchronization showing positive resonance patterns across all Altarian vessels. Human fleet reports ready for coordinated action, added Captain Martinez from her position at the tactical station. Marcus took his place in the command chair that had been modified to accommodate human physiology. Around him, the bridge was a fascinating blend of harmonious organic curves, human angular displays, and Altarian crystalline interfaces that seemed to respond to thought as much as touch. All ships, this is Fleet Commander Chen, Marcus said, using the formal title that still felt strange on his tongue. Devourer advance elements are entering the system. Execute Formation Alpha. The combined fleet moved with surprising grace, considering the complexity of coordinating 3 different types of ships with entirely different propulsion and maneuvering systems. Human vessels formed the heavy battle line, harmonious ships took position for optimal communication coordination, and Altarian vessels prepared for quantum phase operations. Contact, called the sensor operator. Devourer formation emerging from hyperspace at the system's edge. Marcus watched the tactical display as enemy ships materialized in the perfect geometric patterns he'd come to expect. Over 300 vessels, each one designed for maximum destructive efficiency. They're moving toward the outer orbital defenses, Admiral Kayeth reported from the Transcendent Light. Standard first wave pattern. Let them, Marcus replied. We stick to the plan. For the next 2 hours, they watched the Devourers systematically destroy the outer defensive stations. It was painful to watch, but necessary for the plan to work. The enemy had to commit fully to their attack pattern before the Allied fleet could spring their trap. Second wave forming up, Captain Martinez reported. They're targeting military installations on the 3rd moon. All ships, prepare for quantum phase coordination, Marcus announced. Harmonious vessels, begin harmonic synchronization. Throughout the fleet, harmonious ships began to sing. The sound carried through space on quantum frequencies, creating a musical coordination signal that synchronized the Altarian ship's quantum phase generators. Synchronization achieved, Lyralii called out, her voice tight with concentration as she helped maintain the harmonic patterns. All Altarian vessels ready for coordinated phase shift. Marcus studied the tactical display, waiting for the perfect moment. The Devourer fleet was spread out in attack formation, focused on their assault targets and not expecting coordinated resistance from multiple directions.
"Execute phase strike," Marcus ordered. What happened next was like watching magic.
The entire Altarian fleet simply vanished from normal space, their quantum phase generators allowing them to exist temporarily outside conventional spacetime. For a moment, the tactical display showed only human and harmonious vessels facing the massive Devourer force. Then, the Altarians reappeared, directly inside the Devourer formation. The enemy fleet, designed for hive-mind coordination and mutual support, suddenly found themselves with hostile ships appearing in their midst. The perfect geometric formations that were their strength became a weakness as they couldn't fire on the Altarians without risking damage to their own vessels.
"Human fleet, engage assigned targets," Marcus commanded.
Harmonious vessels, maintain coordination harmonics.
The battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded military history.
Human ships poured devastating firepower into the Devourer formation from extreme range, while Altarian vessels struck critical targets from impossible angles before phasing back out of normal space. Harmonious ships wove between the combatants, their crystalline hulls singing coordination songs that allowed the Allied fleet to operate as a single, perfectly synchronized entity. The Devourers tried to adapt, but their hive-mind coordination was disrupted by the quantum phase attacks appearing in their midst. Ships that relied on mutual support found themselves isolated and vulnerable.
"Enemy command vessel identified," reported the targeting officer.
Large ship at coordinates 77 Mark 12. Marcus studied the massive Devourer ship at the center of their formation. If their intelligence was correct, it would contain the quantum entanglement communicators that allowed the enemy to coordinate across vast distances.
"Admiral Kayeth," Marcus called to the Altarian flagship, "can your ships target the command vessel?"
"Affirmative. Preparing coordinated quantum phase assault.
All Altarian vessels, focus on the command ship.
Human fleet, provide covering fire.
Harmonious ships,